Is everyone signed in that's here? Okay, then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Supervisor Powers? You should have been on. You are on.
Creator, I don't think, oh, great Creator, we ask for guidance in our deliberations in the service of the people of Winnebago County. We ask you, in whose perfect kingdom, no sword is drawn, but the sword of righteousness. No strength is known. The strength of love. Guide the nations of the world, which prevail justice and truth. Establish among them that peace, which is the fruit of righteousness. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Yeah. Do I have a motion to adopt tonight's agenda?
I move to adopt this evening's agenda. Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Carried. Don't forget tonight when you're seconding in this and that to go ahead and push your button, which they did. When you're going to second a motion, you need to push in. All right. At this time, pursuant to Rules 6.4, 8.1, and 10.1 of the 2022-2024 Rules of the Winnebago County Supervisors, the County Board Chair shall limit all public comments to 2 minutes. So at this time, any person present to express their opinion on any resolution or ordinance that appears on the agenda, as well as any matter over the body has jurisdiction, may speak at this time. Just come forward to the microphone. Let's see here, where is it here? I'm trying to turn it on here. No. Try that.
How's that?
State your name and address, please.
Okay, my name is David Kane. I live at 1573 Pondview Drive, Neenah, Wisconsin. I've been a Winnebago County resident for 40 years, and I've been in Neenah for the last 10 years. And the reason I'm here today is to ask for the support in the approval of the Grumman Boat Launch Program, to the improvements at the Grumman Boat Launch. I'm just going to give you a brief background. Our group doesn't have a formal name. I was one of 7 people that came to Winnebago County Executive Mark Harris and asked him how do we address an issue in Winnebago County in regards to the boat landings. And he told us to work with the Park and Rec Director. So anyway, I'm just going to go through this. This is some of the information that we basically found out in our research. And I'm hoping that at some point you will approve this Grumman boat launch improvement as well as other lake access issues. Like I said, myself and a group of 7 other residents got together in 2019 to find a solution to inadequate parking at the Grumman boat launch. We met with Winnebago County Executive Mark Harris and asked what the best way was to get this improvements made to address the unsafe and inadequate conditions at the Grumman boat launch. The Grumman boat launch has the highest amount of usage of any boat launch in the county. When they did a recent survey, they found that 88% of the people use the Grumman boat launch more than any other boat launch in the county. We began to investigate every aspect of the boat launch facilities in Winnebago County and tried to determine why we had recent inadequate parking and minimal improvements over the last 16 years. we determined as a group that the primary cause was the cost associated with the service and placement of United States Coast Guard navigational buoys throughout Winnebago County. The county was forced under duress to do this when the Coast Guard refused to complete their mission and protect the lives and property of residents under their jurisdiction. This has been going on for 37 years, and there have been various attempts to address this issue, and it has fallen on deaf ears. And that is something that's going to have to be addressed here in the future, and I am going to be putting some effort into trying to resolve that issue in the future.
Time's just about up, sir.
Okay. I asked several times for a I'll skip that. Let's see.
Time's up. Do you have anything else real quick?
Well, I just want to state the simple fact that from 2000 to 2021, there were 6,000 additional boats in Winnebago County. The current count of boats in Winnebago County is 17,000. Between Winnebago County and Outagamie County, there's a total of 34,000 boats in this area. We have 350 parking spots north of Oshkosh to facilitate this. And I guess I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak to the board this evening? Anyone else? Is there anyone on Zoom?
Oh, yes, one. Just says county resident, but we don't have anyone.
Is there a county resident that wishes to talk to the board this evening?
They need to identify us, yeah, and as to the address.
Is there a county resident that wishes to talk to the board this evening? You'll need to state your name and address.
They have to
You'll have to unmute yourself first.
Yes, thank you. My name is Tamar Mathwig. I live at 895 Michigan Street in Amro. Can you hear me?
Can hear you. A little closer
Okay.
to your mic if you can.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'm calling in tonight to express some concern regarding last week's UW Extension Committee meeting. A board supervisor made some false claims about other board members. Karen Powers lied to the public. Karen claimed that either the county executive or the chairman of the diversity committee stated some members of the Oshkosh community are not black enough to be on the diversity committee. She brought no evidence to prove those statements are true. No video, no audio, no transcripts, just gossip. She thinks one of them said that, but she can't remember which one. Karen Powers went on to claim that a member of the diversity committee is a QAnon member, but didn't state their name or how she knows that. Karen Powers went on to call members of the diversity committee racist. She brought no evidence to prove that. Thankfully, these meetings are now being recorded for transparency. The public is able to keep board members accountable for lies like that. Karen, it is reckless to throw down statements of people being racist. It's dangerous to falsely accuse others when you can't state specific details. It would be more prudent to show evidence for what you're saying. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on Zoom? Is there anyone else that would just speak to the public today, or the public wish to speak to the board? Not seeing any, we'll consider that part closed. Communication, petitions, memorials, accounts, communications.
Good evening, everyone. We have a notice of claim from a Winnebago County employee, Brian Cumbier, for damage to his eyeglasses while working. We have a number of resolutions this evening that will all be referred to the Legislative Committee. One from Kenosha County, Resolution Number 22, a resolution to conduct countywide advisory referendum on making the state of Wisconsin a Second Amendment sanctuary state. From Lincoln County, Resolution Number 2022-0724, resolution for advisory referendum regarding private funding of election administration. From Oneida County, Resolution Number 86, 2022, resolution to insist upon the prohibition of the use of private donations for the purpose of election administration. Oneida County, Resolution Number 87, 2022, a resolution to request the state of Wisconsin revise the current real estate transfer fees revenue sharing formula. From Price County, Resolution Number 28-22, resolution for advisory referendum regarding private funding of election administration. And from Taylor County, Resolution Number 22, resolution regarding private funding of election administration. And then we also have one commendation for Betty DeHart. Betty DeHart began her career with Winnebago County in 2001, working in the facilities department as a custodian. She has a great work ethic and is known for going above and beyond to help others. She worked in various buildings throughout the county, spending most of her last years at the Neenah Human Services. Betty is a great baker and would often bring in homemade baked goods. She's also skilled at sewing, and if anyone she worked with needed something sewed or hemmed, she would gladly help them out. She has a huge heart, which is obvious to the people who knew her. The facilities department is grateful to have worked with Betty for so many years. Her commitment and dedication to Winnebago County is outstanding. Please join me in expressing our gratitude for Betty's 21 years of service and best wishes for an enjoyable retirement. And that's it.
Thank you, Julie. Reports from committees, commissions, and boards. Vice Chairman Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to offer a report on my attendance to the WCA convention. I arrived there on Sunday and attended the 1 o'clock business meeting. At that business meeting, the resolutions being brought forward from the counties and the steering committees were up for a vote, and I did represent Winnebago County in that voting procedure. There were 29 resolutions. 21 through 29 were simply resolutions that has corresponded with county policy and their legislative agenda, so they were all grouped together. I should note I voted for the other resolutions with the exception of one, which I will explain to you. Resolution number 16 was from Vilas County. Now you may be aware that our northern counties are pretty much strapped for cash, I'll put it that way. That would be Vilas, Forest, Burnett, other counties up north. They simply don't have the resources that we have with net new construction, et cetera. So their resolution was requesting that the state legislature modify the levy limits. I voted no on that issue with an explanation. There's also other resolutions in this packet that request the state of Wisconsin to amend the county sales tax proportion that they can levy. It's currently 0.5%. I'm sure you're aware Milwaukee County wants that raised to 1%. So my statement was Winnebago County does not support the levy limit modification. However, we would consider increasing the sales tax option to the counties. Doing that would give certainly the counties up north more revenue without modifying the levy limits. That's the position I took. Other than that, on Monday, I attended by the way, there were 67 members present out of 72 counties. On Monday, I attended the General Assembly, which was quite a spectacular event. They had huge screens for video, and the presenters, or the people that spoke, was the governor, Tony Evers. Tim Michels followed. He's a Republican governor candidate. Both gave very nice speeches, I believe. Senator Ron Johnson spoke by video from Washington, D.C. The Senate Democrat candidate, Mr. Barnes, spoke, and the candidates for the Attorney General. So it was really a very pleasant and an honor to attend it and hear these gentlemen speak to their candidacy for the higher elected officials of this state. That's my report, other than I would say that Mr. Deffering and I got to shake the governor's hand. He actually went through the crowd and was shaking hands with the representatives. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Bender.
I'd just like to say that 4-H is having their pizza sale for November 5th. You have till October 11th to order them. You can order them at Winnebago 4Hleaders.square.site. Let's see how many we can order and maybe give the county exec a little run for his money. We can get the 4-H and Veroni. So they'd appreciate if you'd order. I mean, they're $7 a piece. I always order 10 pizzas and give them a $30 donation. It's an even $100. You couldn't go for a better cause. Thank you.
Thank you.
What was that? The website? It is Winnebago 4Hleaders.square.site.
Supervisor Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to announce and let people know that the ADRC committee or board has 2 citizen members openings. If you know any citizen members from the county, please have them contact the county executive. We would be very interested, or not we, but Beth Roberts, the director, would be very interested in having one of the members be maybe from the senior or aging population from the Neenah Menasha area, and then one can be from anywhere. The reason we need that because we need to have so many people represent both the aging population and so many who represent the disability population. So there are 2 openings. We meet the second Monday of every month at 3 o'clock, usually in Oshkosh, but we do sometimes go to Neenah. And it's a 3-year term, and you can get reappointed once. So if you know of anyone, please let the county executive know. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is this worked? Oh, there we go. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to give a report on behalf of JPS. Specifically, we were referred a resolution from the board to JPS for consideration, and I'd like to get a report on that. The resolution was 93-082022, amend Rule 8.3. This was discussed at JPS, and we had public comments and committee comments. Public comments were exclusive to concern with rural supervisors having the availability, both from a technology point of view, specifically broadband was a concern, and overall access. We also had that same concern expressed with the committee, as well as the resolution itself was not in compliance with County Board Rule 7.5, as it did not fully consider all costs associated or a cost-benefit analysis or an impact statement from County Clerk's office. Because of those items, the committee did reject the resolution 0 to 5. And that completes my report.
Thank you. Supervisor Defferding.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Also want to report regarding that same Judicial Public Safety Committee meeting is that Jake Curtis from the Wisconsin Counties Association, from Atolis Law, representing the Wisconsin Counties Association, did his presentation in regards to committee right sizing. And he was an Alazaki County supervisor during that time. And he demonstrated how he reduced the committee size for Ozaki County from 30 down to 5. And over the course of about literally within a couple of years that they were able to reduce that down. Obviously he wanted to make it a point that this is what his county did. This is not exactly his recommendation for Winnebago County. But he did illustrate exactly what they did in that process of how they actually went into committee right sizing for his county, so that Winnebago County can take a look at this and study it, talk to department heads throughout the year of 2023, and then look forward to a plan of 2024, and then vote on it, and then start with 2024 with this with the new committees. Or possibly the same committees. It all depends on what we do. So it was incredibly educational, but we certainly do have a lot of work to do in studying this process. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, and I thank Supervisor Defferding for getting that together and everything. It was very informative. And that's all I see for this evening. So the next thing is approval August 16th, 2022, regular session of the board proceedings. Motion was made and seconded. Motion was by David. I don't know who seconded it. Supervisor Cox, was that you? You didn't push in, so I couldn't tell. Okay. So all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. County Executives Report.
Thank you, Chairman Egan. All right, I wanted to give a quick WCA recap real quick. WCA held another fantastic convention that ended today. I'd like to thank all the supervisors that I saw there for going to learn more about the world of county government. It really is quite the experience. I attended the Executives and Administrators meeting that was very engaging around the discussion of levels of shared revenue with the state. I believe we will be able to come together as a whole, combined with the help of WCA, to make some desperately needed change on how the state can look at becoming better partnered with counties across Wisconsin to help fund some of these unfunded mandates that we have. The Washington County Executive and myself gave an informative presentation on housing instability. I focused on our neighborhood improvement grant and the projects that we are funding through that grant, and he focused on landing spots of permanent housing. We're going to need to take a comprehensive look at all partners ranging from municipalities to towns, the contractors and banks, and see why we are pushing the idea of the starter home out of existence. I was shocked to hear that in Washington County, the average starter home ranges between $250,000 and $300,000. There was an exercise where Executive Showman had everybody talk to the person next to them and describe their first starter homes. And those situations were much different from what we're facing today. But we need to look at everything in a comprehensive way, from zoning restrictions to bank fees, to see exactly why we're breaking that down. In Winnebago County, the smallest lot size we can have is a 1/4 acre, and the smallest house that you can build is 1,200 square feet. And that doesn't include your garage. So we have to look at some of these zoning restrictions that we're doing. Is that causing some of the fees and some of the reasons why these starter houses are outside of affordability? One of the things that was mentioned in this, you used to be able to have 2 houses on the side of a street. Now the streets have to be wider, sidewalks on both sides, and it has to have gutters. That all cost money, and it increases the cost of these. These are things that we need to look deeply with all the partners to figure out how all of our pennies are putting together to make housing unaffordable. Neighborhood Improvement Grant, a little update on that. Last week we wrapped up all the sub-recipient grant agreements with all 5 partners. That's exciting. We're expecting the money to begin passing through the county of these projects within the next month. You may have noticed that some of these projects are well underway. Pleased to announce the Oshkosh Kids Tiny House Campus, as well as the day-by-day warming shelter, are expected to be completed by next spring. We'll be preparing a presentation to report this to this board very soon with all the partners. We're excited about that. I want to talk about the the employee appreciation event. I want to take a moment to thank all the board members that showed up for this event. We were able to achieve the event within the budget approved by the Personnel and Finance Committee. In the end, we had over 300 employees that attended with 500 of their guests. Some of the pictures, I don't think we set that up. I did not send pictures to, I intended to. I guess I lost time at the WCA conference. But we will make some pictures available for you from the event. It really was a fantastic time. Youth Government Day, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. Please mark your calendars for November 3rd for Youth Government Day. More information will be coming for new board members. The American Legion sponsors Youth Government Day every year. In the past, it has occurred during the budget sessions. This year, we are sticking within budget week. However, the board will not be planned to be in session during this period, which will make it available for more department heads to show up and some of you to show up to participate in that this year. Next year, we do look forward to moving it outside of the budget season so that we can really engage in that. We will get you invites out to be a little bit more formally invited, but I encourage you to attend. It really is a great event. Diversity Affairs Commission. As you may know, the Diversity Affairs Commission and the UW Extension Committee are contemplating and eliminating the Diversity Affairs Commission. Unfortunately, the staff member who was facilitating this commission has been promoted to a new position outside of Winnebago County. Additionally, we have been struggling to keep a full commission. I have appointed each position multiple times. This discussion is dividing this board. The bureaucratic red tape of the commission is stifling any work we are actually able to do for diversity, equity, and inclusion. We cannot make this initiative political. We cannot make false claims about the commission or others involved. Recently, I heard an analogy about DEI related to music. The diversity is the different types of music we have. Inclusion is the DJ playing all types of music, and equity is making sure everybody has access to the dance. Supervisor Nussbaum, I commend you on your comments during that meeting that diversity and equity and inclusions are wonderful things, because they are. We should not use these terms as political tools. We need to be finding ways to embrace our differences as a community and give helping hands to those that are left behind. The Winnebago County and community has challenges right here. This year, a woman from Nicaragua came to our clerk's office for services. We struggled through a language barrier. We were able to find somebody in the Register of Deeds to come and help this woman to get the services they need. While we are arguing over a bureaucratic system, there are actual services that we need to figure out how we can give to people that are left behind. Instead of focusing on speakers, we need to be focusing on how we bring our community together to celebrate our differences. We should be ensuring everyone has access to our services and focus on any issues that may be limiting anyone for any reason. I'd like to remind this board that I have appointed many people from many backgrounds to the DAC. Schedules have not worked with many, and I'm saddened by that because some of them I think would have been fantastic members. Rodney Frazier comes to mind. I think he would have been a fantastic member. I'm not interested in creating an echo chamber. If this board decides to go forward with the DAC, I will continue to support and appoint differing viewpoints to this commission. If 7 of you cannot discuss and craft a message in unison, we have no right to believe we can carry a message to our entire county. If we cannot craft that message, I will call for this board to consider repealing Diversity Affairs Commission and replace it with strategic goals that improve our services to all of our citizens. A year later, I will report to you on how we are doing on all those goals. Diversity is about loving your neighbor, period. We can serve the refugees, we can serve the poor and others without this commission or the political buzzwords that upset citizens and create divides amongst this board. I know we can do better. I know I can do better, and I promise we will do better. Next point is the community town halls. Last month, this body voted down taking a grant to help us facilitate town halls. I will never criticize your decisions as they are yours alone to make. I will continue to respect the policy decisions of this board. I did state, however, that I was going to direct the public health to go out and listen to the people no matter what was decided on the funding. I'd like to offer an opportunity to this board to team with our public health department to help set up and facilitate these meetings right inside your own districts. Part of doing this work will allow you to see how public health operates and ensure that all voices are heard. It will also give those in public health the opportunity to get to know you better and know where you're coming from. I hope this will allow all of us to listen to our citizens to find out what went well and what went wrong. I also hope this will allow some of you to build some trust in the health department and our health department to get to know some of you. We need to work together. ARPA Commission update. We will be meeting next Tuesday, the 27th at 3 p.m. The Commission has directed me to see what the county's internal needs are first. I can tell you that list is long. I've been struggling to decide which ones to bring based on the lack of a strategic plan. I could easily spend the entire $33 million with county needs alone. I'm going to be bringing forward and ask to start the strategic planning process immediately to this commission, and I hope we can all agree to get this moving. I'm also going to bring you some of the projects that have been brought forward to me. And we are also going to be bringing forward a resolution to accept the second tranche of the ARPA dollars. Lastly, I'm sorry, I know this is a long report, I had a lot to cover, is the budget introduction. We are wrapping up the budget book. I'm proposing another year of equalized property tax rate reduction in 2023, dropping down 43 cents to 4.23. Departments were asked to submit a levy target at or under their 2022 level request, while the proposed merit pool increase was based on a 4% average wage increase. We can only increase our levy by the percent of net new construction from the last calendar year, which allowed for a 1.38% increase. I'm hoping to give our citizens a little tax relief to adjust for the inflation they're seeing month after month. I look forward to giving you more in-depth presentations at your committee levels and with department heads. And I do believe that we put together a really good budget, and I'd like to thank all departments and department heads for really putting their heads down, putting your pens to paper, and coming up with really good strategies. A lot of the money that we decided to approve on as far as additional requests were one-time purchases to kind of spend down our fund balance a little bit, not programs. And with that, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Any questions on what he spoke on? Any questions? Not seeing any, you can go ahead. I'm sorry. Supervisor Foam.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. County Executive. Two questions. Sheriff Motz and Medical Examiner Cheryl Bremer both forwarded projects that could be presented to the ARPA Commission from their respective departments. I just want to make sure you've got those and that you're aware of those.
Absolutely. I got all three of the sheriff's projects, I believe it was, and Cheryl had proposed the morgue. Yes.
Supervisor Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is, I know I asked this a couple months ago, but I'm going to ask it again. What is being done with the opioid settlement? Because I know Supervisor Defferding and Supervisor Ellenberger went to a breakout session where we had some advice on what to do with the opioid money. I'm just curious of what you have decided what Winnebago County would do with the opioid money settlement. Thank you.
Sure. We are still waiting on the securitization discussion because we want to wait for some of the bigger counties and see what they're going to do. If Milwaukee and Dane decide not to securitize, we're going to get a much smaller amount. So that is a discussion this board will have to make if we want to do securitization or if we don't. I'm not really sure Johnson & Johnson is in risk of going bankrupt. But where I would like to see the money to be spent is to fund the Connect program well into the future. I mean, this really is a comprehensive spot under one roof where we have the DA and we have the sheriff and we have health and human services all working together with peer support to really help the people that are most at risk of overdosing.
Supervisor Norton.
I just want to add, one thing that came out of this group, this breakout session, not tie all our money into one particular area. This was John Nyman, who used to be the used to head of the joint finance, who had a very personal stake in this issue, and he said that one thing we should be trying to do is work with our neighborhood counties so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. So I think that's one thing is going forward. We should try to look for ways for programs that could work both in maybe Fond du Lac or Outagamie. So that's one suggestion that I thought was very good that I took from that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I do appreciate that. The WCA appointed me to be the chairman of the opioid task force. So we're going to be getting together as a state level with many stakeholders throughout the entire state to really recommend to other counties how to spend their money, and also to make recommendations to the state for their 30%.
Supervisor Peschel.
Sure, thank you. County Executive Damo, I want to be the first county board supervisor to say that District 19 is more than happy to support the health department in any way that they need. I will go above and beyond to making sure that they're welcome and have a place to engage the community in District 19.
I appreciate that. And anybody else that wants to start the process, please reach out. I've already talked to Doug, Director Guerin, on this, and he is excited to do so.
Supervisor Zastira.
Yes, and just to reflect on Mr. Peschel's comment, or to piggyback on that, I immediately wanted to get Black Wolf, Nakaimai, and Utica to facilitate that with Director Guerin, so thank you for the opportunity.
And I did want to mention when I talked to Chairman Egan about that, for those that have larger districts, the health department was willing to have more than one town hall meeting to cover your areas, as well as if a couple supervisors have smaller districts near to each other, if you want to facilitate both your districts at the same time, they're willing to do that as well.
Thank you. You have appointments now?
Yep, I do. All right, Board of Adjustment. Oh, 1 second. Yep, that's all right. I just want to make sure I printed off the right one. Mr. Tom Verstegen, Town of Black Wolf, current second alternate to the BOA, will be appointed to a vacant term. The appointment will create a vacancy for the second alternate to the BOA. The term expires June 30th of 2025.
Motion made and seconded for Tom Verstegen. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried.
All right, Fox Valley Workforce Development Board. Renewing terms, Russ Hazy? Hayes, all right. Education and Health Care Director, Aurora Healthcare. Larry Lautenschlager, Labor Council President, Winnebago Area Labor Council. And Jennifer Marks, Director of Operations, Forward Services Corporation. You want... Oh.
Motion made. Is there a second? Did I hear a second? Seconded by Supervisor Ellinger. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
All right. New appointments. Casey Borkenhagen, Senior Human Resource Manager, Oshkosh Corp., 2307 Oregon Street, Oshkosh, 54903. And Rob Clayman of the Oshkosh Chamber of Commerce. These 5 appointments expire June 30th of 2025.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Carried.
All right. Ongoing appointments. Dale Walker, Director of Business and Industry Services, Fox Valley Technical College, will serve until June 30th. And Jose Martinez, Vice President of UMOS, will serve until June 30th of 2024.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried.
All right. And then the Amro Library Board, the appointment of Supervisor Jeffrey Boehm to the Amro Library Board. Term expires April 31st of 2021, and he will be replacing Tom Ellis, who served that board long and very well.
Motion made and seconded for Jeffrey Boehm for Armor Library Board. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed say nay. Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. My report won't take very long. I just wanted to bring to the attention of all of you, I'm sure that you got this piece of paper about the watermark, the draft watermark in there. Rather than wasting the paper and having it all sent out again, I said, just go ahead and put this piece of paper in, and the girls were just fine with that. So that's what it was just a mistake, and that's all it amounted to. The other thing tonight is Supervisor Robinson, Supervisor Nichols, Supervisor Gustafson, and Supervisor Schellinger are all excused. And my one last thing is that on resolution number 93-08, 2022, it got on to, that's your first resolution, got on to the, for the resolutions, and that one should have been pulled. And I will tell you why. It's because it had gone to the Judiciary Board, and because all of you know the Monday before the meeting is, it has to be put in by noon. And their meeting isn't until 6 o'clock or after, so we know it was after that. So that should have never hit this agenda. So that, pardon? Your first one, 93-08, 2022. So that one will be pulled as of this time and brought back in next month. Supervisor Norton.
Since it's my resolution, and I was going to do it, do we somehow have that extension to the IT committee? Because I think there's some technical issues which were raised back at the meeting when it was considered, and tonight, that was what I was going to do with it. If there's any way I can do that, I would do that now, if possible. The IT committee is supposed to meet in October. I don't know how many meetings it's going to take, but that's what I would wish we would do. The IT committee take up the technical parts of it, and then we bring it back to the county board, if I could do that.
Alls I can say is I know because we checked into this very closely, it was referred back to judiciary, so that's why it went to them. Supervisor Dowling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry, my tablet's not working. And Supervisor Gustafson isn't here. He's the chairman of the IT committee, so we feel like we should probably check with him as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My pad isn't working either. Just as a, I don't know, maybe a friendly comment, wouldn't it make more sense those people who want to have paper, get paper, those who don't want paper, don't get paper, and stop debating this? Thank you.
Alls I can tell, well, I'm not even going to say this because you heard the report from the chairman of the judiciary. Supervisor Boehm.
Oh, no.
Oh, I was just checking to see if my thing was working.
Yours is working.
It's not coming up here, though.
All right. So that's where we're at on that. So that's all I really have for this evening. We'll keep on going. Our next thing is our zoning reports and ordinances. Report number 1, Vice Chairman Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for approval of report number 1 for Troy A. Dietering, is it? Town of Neenah.
Is there a second? Second. Supervisor Nussbaum, did you second that? Okay, I had a second already. I'm sorry. Supervisor Nussbaum had a second. Yeah. Supervisor Norton. Your light come on. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. Mandatory ordinance number 090122, rezone from R1 rural residential to A2 general agriculture for tax parcel number 010-0090-13. Vice Chairman Fari.
And I move for approval of a mandatory ordinance number 090122.
Seconded by Supervisor Cox. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Carried. Port number 002, Teresa Blade, Town of Nepiescum. Supervisor Hintz. Gotta find you here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Report number 002, Teresa Blade, Town of Nepiescum. Look, this isn't the one that we need to correct, by the way, yet either. Yeah, that's the report. Wait for a motion.
Are you looking for something, or?
No.
Oh, I thought you were
Waiting
talking.
for-
Is there-
yeah.
We have a second by Supervisor Haran. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Carried. Mandatory ordinance number 090222. Supervisor Hintz. When that vote
There we
thing
go.
goes off, it turns
Thank you,
off,
Mr. Chairman.
so.
A mandatory ordinance number 0922, or 090222, rezoning from A2 General Agriculture to R1 Rural Residential for tax parcel number 014-0055-01-03. Make a motion to accept.
Motion is made, second by Flom. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Carried. Mandatory ordinance number 0903-2022, multiple property owners, Town of Wolf River. Supervisor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that for the rezoning from A1 General Agriculture to A2 General Farming District and A3 Small Farming District for the number of tax parcels listed on your sheet.
Okay.
There are number of residents in the town of Wolf River.
And that is seconded by Supervisor Dowling. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. Mandatory ordinance number 090422, Teresa Blade, Town of Nepiescum. Supervisor Hintz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I make a motion to accept a mandatory ordinance number 090422, Teresa Blade, Town of Nepiescum, rezoning from farmland preservation overlay in A2 General Farming District to non-farmland preservation overlay in R1 Rural Residential, and also rezoning from farmland preservation overlay in A2 General Farming District to non-farmland preservation overlay for another parcel. And also on this one, we need to make a correction on the back side of the cover page. For our September 9th Planning and Zoning meeting, it was incorrectly listed that it was the Town of Wolf River. That needs to be changed to the Town of Nepiescum. And on number 2.
Okay, and that was seconded by Supervisor Dowling. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Carried. Mandatory ordinance number 090522, Barb Rank Life Estate, Town of Nepiescum. Supervisor Astera. Let me.
Apologize. Okay. Okay, so, I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared, Chairman. The County Board of Supervisors of Winnebago County, okay, where am I? Motion to approve. I'm sorry, it's been a long day. Okay, Motion to approve Barb Rank, Life Estate, Town of Utica, amendatory ordinance number 090522, rezoning from A2 Agriculture District to RR, Rural Residential Recreational Mixed Use for tax parcel number 024-0030.
That was seconded by Flom. Supervisor Flom. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Not seeing any, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Carried. Mandatory ordinance 090622, Matt Ziegenhagen, Town of Utica. Supervisor Zestero.
Sorry. Motion for mandatory ordinance number 090622, Matt Ziegenhagen, like I said, Town of Utica, rezoning from A2 General Farming District to RR Rural Residential Recreational Mixed Use for tax parcel number 024-0243.
And then seconded by Flom. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Not seeing any, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. You girls all set? Yeah. Went through on all. Okay, so resolution number 9308-2022 has been pulled. Next is resolution 9509-2022. Supervisor Cox, where are you here? Just hold on for a minute here. I went so fast, the girls got to catch up. All set? Okay, Supervisor Cox, resolution number 9509-2022, commendation for Elizabeth Betty DeHart. You are on.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Thank you. I move that Resolution 9509-2022, the combination for Elizabeth Betty DeHart, be accepted by the board.
And that is seconded by Supervisor Peschel. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Not seeing any, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Carried. Resolution number 9609-2022, disallow claim of Mark Morgan. Supervisor Cox.
I move that the resolution 9609-2022 to disallow the claim of Mark Morgan be accepted by the board.
And that is seconded by Supervisor Haran. Supervisor Dowling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just curious to know, looking through the packet, I see some images submitted by by Mark Morgan. Does the county have any images, like of progress photos they took throughout to show the gap in the street that the gentleman's referring to?
I don't know, Vinny.
It's just really hard to tell from the photos, and I feel bad for the gentleman, but it's just really hard to tell from the photos.
Supervisor Cox, do you have any answer for that?
Sure.
I believe the area was marked under construction. And he should not have been in it. Did you get anything on it, Mike?
I don't have anything specifically on it, but just a word in general about these type of claims. We normally don't get the materials regarding the claims except for what's formally submitted by the claimant. At that point, it's referred to our insurance company. So there is an insurance company that looks into this, professionals at doing this. We pay them premiums and administrative fees, et cetera. And they collect all the photographs, they look at the situation, they really decide whether to pay the claim. And if they determine that it's an allowable claim, they will pay it under our insurance policy. If not, they have no hesitation in saying no. But it's just part of the process. And just to explain why we bring these here, under the statutes, the time on which a lawsuit may be filed begins to run when the board officially denies the claim. So we deny the claim. There have been times where the insurance company actually paid the claim a day after the board denied it. And that could happen, but it's just a formality we go through to deny these claims to shorten the time for filing a lawsuit in the relatively rare event that it does get to that point. So there are no photos? I don't know if there are photos. The adjuster will have them. And we don't get that level of involvement unless we ask for them.
Okay, thank you.
Not seeing any other questions. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. Resolution number 9709, 2022, authorize the borrowing of an amount not to exceed $6 million and authorizing the issuance and sales general obligation promissory notes thereof. Supervisor Cox.
May the board accept Resolution 9709, 2022, authorizing the borrowing of the amount not to exceed $6 million and authorizing the issuance and the sale of general obligation promissory notes therefore.
And that is seconded by Supervisor Boehm. Supervisor Peschel.
Sure, so, I guess a couple questions here. One, I guess my first question is for, Corporation Counsel, in regards to, and I've inquired in the past related to that threshold of votes that we need for certain types of votes. And so I'd like to make a distinction between why this one's 3/4 and other ones are 2/3.
And I'm glad you opened that up because this is via the statute. 5960 specifically says that the board, by resolution adopted by 3/4 of members elect, to the extent that unappropriated funds or realized revenues in excess of anticipated revenues are unavailable to meet the emergency, or the board may, by resolution adopted by 3/4 of members elect, issue tax anticipation notes. So the reason why it's 3/4 members elect is based on 5960 sub 9.
Okay.
And again, it's not 3/4 of members present, it's 3/4 of members elect.
Elect, okay.
So that means 24, yeah,
Got it.
or not 24.
So, this isn't actually worded correctly then.
The vote should be elect, correct?
All right, so it should
should
say
be-
elect not present.
That's absolutely right.
All right.
Yes.
So, okay.
I apologize for that
All right.
mistake.
And then, you said unappropriated funds, correct?
Let me just, yes, to the extent that unappropriated funds or realized revenues in excess of anticipated revenues are unavailable to meet the emergency, the board may, by resolution adopted by 3/4 of members elect, issue tax anticipation notes under 6712.
All right, so I guess my question is, what is define that unappropriated fund, or what was the next word that you used? You said something about revenue, sorry.
That's fine. In excess of anticipated revenues are unavailable to meet the emergency, the board, by resolution adopted by 3/4 of members elect, issue tax anticipation notes under 6712.
Okay. Define that first part of that unappropriated funds in the revenue.
You know what? We have our bond people here, so, if,
I would like to propose that he come and answer that question, please.
if that's,
come up here. Have him come up right up here.
Yeah, yeah.
Sir, will you want to come right up here? So.
Yeah. Are you?
Well, so essentially, I'm not bond counsel on these type of issues. So I don't know exactly the statutes, the legal terminology and so forth. But essentially, this type of authorizing resolution, regardless of, you can have different types of votes, and 3/4 of the vote per members elect is always going to be one of the requirements in order to authorize the issuance of general obligation debt. And that's the way the county has always done it in the past.
Okay. Thank you. And I don't know that my question is for you then.
Yeah.
So, and I guess my general question related to unappropriated funds and revenues and such is that the resolution talks about there being capital funds, which means that we've already kind of determined that how we're going to use these funds in the sense that they're going to be used in a capital, in a way to support capital projects. And I guess Mr. Collard, could you answer this question in regards to this? Because where I'm going is that I believe that when we go out to borrow, we already have appropriated a certain set of projects that we want to be funded with that $6 million, correct? So, would that be an accurate statement?
Well, Mr. Chairman, if you'd allow, I think I could explain at least. The proposed use of the $6 million is to fund projects that have already been authorized by the board this year. Specifically, the board approved in June a resolution to authorize construction of the T hangar project at the airport. So that's a $4.3 million project, $3 million in county funding involved. That was resolution 70-06 2022, and this is the language we put in the resolution. Approves capital projects for Whitman Regional Airport to construct new T hangar facilities at a cost of $4.3 million. Well, I'm reading the wrong part. I'll skip ahead a little bit. That the $3 million of funds to pay for this project will be advanced from the general fund balance and will be reimbursed from a subsequent bond issue.
Okay.
So the board has already identified bonding as the source of funding for that project. With respect to the other $3 million, the other half of the $6 million, we propose to use that or allocate it to the county highway construction program that again was approved by this board in May of this year, resolution 49-05 2022. And in that case, the resolution indicated that the funds to pay for these capital improvement projects will be advanced from the general fund balance and will either reduce the undesignated fund balance or will be reimbursed from a subsequent bond issue. So we've already identified the bond issue as at least a possible source of revenue. Of course, the total of the county projects is over $3 million. So it'd be partially reducing the fund balance, partially refunded or reimbursed with the bond issue. If we didn't have that type of language in these resolutions, we wouldn't be allowed to use the bond proceeds for them.
Sure.
So this is language recommended by our bond counsel and by our bond advisor with Baird to make sure that it's an allowable use. And now we're identifying these two as the actual use to which we'll put the $6 million, $3 million for airport, and $3 million to apply toward the $5.1 million in county highway projects that the board has approved, with the remainder of it going to reduce fund balance.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that clarification because from what I can tell in any of the supporting information that we've been provided today, it doesn't hit that home that that's what it's for. So I think in the future, when we're doing these, we should follow up with a statement that states, previously the board has approved these projects to be funded in this way and to just kind of list them there. Because outward to the public, they don't just, not everyone follows every single meeting. So I think it's a more transparent way to just have a small report at the end that states, here's what this bonding obligations are going to take care of. And this is, maybe even the resolution when it was approved. And that just makes it that much more transparent. Makes it easier so people can go back and look at it as well. So that's just my only comments there. So thank you.
Supervisor Cox.
Mr. Kohler, could you explain the general fund balance policy and the fact sheet that you provided for the committee and how we came on the $6 million in round numbers?
Thank you. Yes, I'd be glad to do that. The county does have a policy on its general fund balance, unrestricted general fund balance. This was adopted by the board in March of 2020. And the key part of that policy states that it is the goal of the county to achieve and maintain an unrestricted fund balance in the general fund equal to a target range of 16 to 20% of the governmental funds, excluding capital and debt service funds, subsequent years' budgeted expenditures. The county will measure its compliance with this policy as of December 31st each year, or as soon as practical after the final year-end audit becomes available, which was a few weeks ago, of course, for the year ending December 31st, 2021. It further goes on and says that if the unrestricted general fund balance is more than that target range, then the balance should be used in various ways, including at least half of it should be appropriated to lower the amount of bonds or contributions needed to fund capital projects. So that's what we've attempted to do. So I did a calculation. I think, frankly, under the policy, there are some unclear terms as to exactly which funds to look at and which percentages to apply. But by my calculation, well, not my calculation, the starting point is the unrestricted general fund balance as of the end of 2021 is $40,910,868. That's according to our audited statements, which were released a few weeks ago. So that's how much we have. That isn't spoken for in any way. The county has a lot more funds than that. There are funds that are dedicated to solid waste. There are funds that are designated for Parkview, public health, various other uses that have already been either appropriated or just set aside for a particular purpose in one way or another. So this is really what's left over, the general funds that are not designated for any particular use at this point by the board, a little less than 41 million. So I did a calculation looking at the different fund balances and subtracting out the capital and debt service funds and so forth, and came up with a little under 151 million. And applying that percentage, by my calculation, we were about $10.7 million over the target range in our unrestricted general fund balance. So again, applying the policy, that means we should spend or apply at least $5,361,000 of the fund balance to pay for the current capital projects this year. Right. Now the board has already approved a little under $11 million in capital projects. There are a couple of others that might yet be coming that would bring the total to close to $11.5 million. So taking that 5.3 million out or 5.4 million out as what we need to apply out of fund balance. We need to reduce the fund balance by at least that amount. That leaves us with $6,125,000 of capital projects that don't need to be funded out of the general fund but are subject to borrowing. If that makes sense. I'm trying to be clear. It's a little bit of a complicated step by step, but we have to reduce the capital, we have to reduce our undesignated fund by about 5.4 million under our policy. And to do that, we take $11 million in capital projects, apply $5.5 million of it from the general fund, pay for $5.5 million in capital projects out of the general fund, pay for $6 million in capital projects out of bonding. Normally what we do is we look in our capital improvement plan to borrow up to $10 million each year. And that's what the projection assumes, is that we'll be borrowing $10 million a year for capital projects. Only borrowing $6 million. That's influenced greatly by need to follow the fund balance policy, but also some other things we take into account. For instance, that we want to smooth out our debt levy, which isn't subject to the same levy cap, but it's a separate one. So we look at this and we ask our bond advisors to project out what our debt service levy might be in years to come, and try to smooth that out a little bit, because if it goes down and then goes back up again, you'll be getting a lot of calls that we don't want you to get. So this does project that the fund debt service levy will go down about 3 cents on the levy rate just this year. But that's a relatively small, and I think at this point, sustainable decrease that isn't going to ruffle feathers. We could apply more fund balance if the board wishes to do that. But there are also concerns about, frankly, our fund balance policy and whether it really sets aside enough. The amount of fund balance we have undesignated does influence our bond rating, for instance. Enables us to bond because we're financially secure. We've had a lot of influx of money from the federal government, but that doesn't really affect this because those are designated funds. But even on our own, county-raised funds, if you will, we're very financially stable and seen that way, and that helps us get the best possible interest rates when we do need to go out for borrowing. So we want to maintain that picture as well. I'm certainly considering bringing to the committee and to the board some possible changes to that fund balance policy to perhaps better define some of the terms, and also we might want to increase that amount above the 20% just to make sure we remain financially stable in the future. So anyway, those are some of the considerations that went into the decision to propose a $6 million borrowing as opposed to an even lower number. And higher number, significantly higher, would not be consistent with our current fund balance policy.
Thank you. Supervisor Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just two quick questions. The first is, did this go through committee? And if it did, was there a vote? Because it's blank. Okay.
It went through a committee meeting at 5:30 this evening, right before the county board, because the resolution hadn't been prepared by the last P&F meeting. The resolution itself is prepared by our bond attorneys, Quarles and Brady, out of Milwaukee. And so this is the normal procedures. We have a P&F meeting right before the county board, so it was a 4-0 vote before the county board meeting this evening.
Okay, so it's 4-0?
Yes.
All right, thank you. And then the other one is, in terms of the threshold for passage, that would be 27? Yes. Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Hanson.
Mr. Collier, thank you for answering my questions earlier this evening. Most of that has been addressed. If anyone has an objection, I would really like to hear it before we do the vote. And because it's a 3/4 vote, if we could please record it.
Supervisor Peschel, I just want to let you know, according to our rules, you only speak twice on one thing. So
Thank
you're
you for
already, I think you had several questions last time, but.
Correct, but this was an opportunity
So this will be a short one.
Sure. This is an opportunity to amend the original resolution on line 50 so that it says 3/4 of the elected body. And would strike the words, those present.
Second. Motion. Pardon?
Yeah.
It's just
Can
a
be
friendly,
considered a friendly amendment.
friendly amendment.
Yep.
Because that's what it should have been.
So no second needed. Thank you,
So,
Bill.
right. Supervisor Hanson.
Just a question, in the change of elected body, does that mean those that aren't, if this is a close vote, does that mean those that aren't present, what does that mean?
24 instead of 27.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So 3/4 of members-elect means 3/4 of your 36-person body. So 3/4 of 36 is 27.
So think closely, we have quite a few missing tonight, so. So we'll do this by vote. So all those in favor of authorizing the borrowing of the amount of not to exceed of $6 million and authorizing the issuance and sale general obligation promissory note, signify, or not signify, vote A. If you don't agree, vote nay. Past 3/4, just. Resolution number 9809, 2022, authorize the addition of $1,791,500 in construction and renovation costs to the Grunman Boat Landing Capital Improvement Project, of which $548,188 will be funded with either a transfer from the undesignated general fund balance or with advance from general fund to be reimbursed with subsequent bond issue. Supervisor Norton.
Mr. Chairman, move adoption of resolution 98-09-2022.
That is seconded by Dowling.
This is, as the gentleman at the beginning of the meeting, this has been a project that was brought forth by the citizens members, came forward to the previous Parks Director, Rob Way, a few years ago. It's been a long, not long, but been through a couple of different things to get the project off and going and financing. Adam can answer any questions, but I do think kudos to Adam because he was able to get, I think, the maximum amount that the DNR will give to fund this project, the $843,000. So yeah, Winnebago County will have to pay a little bit towards it, but I think, like I say, it's a project that the citizens of that area have wanted, and that's why we should be considering, and that's why I encourage your passage. If you have any other questions, Adam can answer them.
Supervisor Dowling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to echo what Supervisor Norton just said and give a big shout out to Adam, our Park and Rec Director, for all the grants we received for this project. I don't know if anyone on the county board has been to the Grunman Boat Landing recently, but I'm very excited to have a bathroom I can actually use instead of just a porta potty. So, thank you.
Supervisor Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm also supporting this, and I just want to reiterate two things. First is, if you've ever been there, you should go, because this is fixing a safety issue. Number one. Number two, this is the lifeblood of how we get people here in Winnebago County. So there is absolutely a benefit to the citizens on having a safe place to get into and out of the water. So this is a wonderful thing, and I hope you join me. Thank you.
Not seeing any other questions, I'm going to try and do this by voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Carried. Resolution number 9909, 2022. Authorize consecutive beverage pouring rights agreement between Winnebago County and Pepsi Bottling Company, LLC. Supervisor Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for the adoption of resolution 99-09-2022.
Seconded by Supervisor Dowling.
This is a very big agreement. I will just say, and anyone from the committee can speak up, we did fine tune it a little bit, the agreement with the think 100 cases of free water, but it's basically, I think, the same it's been for the last number of years, if I'm not correct, and Adam correct me, but that's the basic agreement.
Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a question. Does pouring rights, that means they have the exclusive ability to sell the beverage? Is that what pouring rights is?
Yes.
Okay.
They have exclusive rights on the whole grounds.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Not seeing. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Carried. Resolution number 100-09-2022, approving a Winnebago County Parks Department policy for Winnebago County 4-H program event. Supervisor Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the adoption of resolution 100-09-2022.
And that's seconded by Supervisor Peschel.
And just very briefly, I'll say this is much needed because there was some confusion when we looked over the documents in the past that Adam had us go through, that there was some confusion of when and how much we charged the 4-H for different events. It's a lot more clarity. I think they like it a whole lot more better, and I know we like it a lot more better, so like I say, it was much needed. I had to clean up. There's some language about, on one page it said you got charged this amount, and then later on it would tell you a different one. It was confusing. So that's why one reason we have this change, and we're adopting this and making the change. Thank you.
Not seeing any questions. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Carried. Resolution number 101-09-2022, approve intergovernmental agreement for fire protection services at Whitman Regional Airport. Supervisor Gabbert.
I move for approval of resolution number 101-09-2022.
That was seconded by Supervisor Haran. Any discussion? Any discussion? Supervisor Nussbaum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a question under apparatus and equipment, number 4, page 2. Actually, it's on page 3, but it's under that category. The county's obligations, number 4, on the top of page 3. It sounds like this should be the city's obligations.
Go ahead, Supervisor Gabbert.
So you understand that this facility is shared between the airport and the fire department? So they have their fire trucks in that facility with their people. We have our AARF.
Can you talk into your
vehicle,
microphone,
which
please,
we furnish
Supervisor Gabbert?
for anything that happens on the airport. So we're not providing them fire trucks or people?
But it says the county's obligations, and it sounds like this is really the city obligations. It seems like number 4 should be moved down one spot, just the way it reads to me. I'm still gonna vote for it, but it just seems like it's written awkward.
Not seeing any other questions. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Carried. Number 102-09-2022, approve amendments to Winnebago County General Code, Chapter 21, Airport Ordinance. Supervisor Gabbert.
I move for approval of ordinance 102-09-2022.
That was seconded by Supervisor Flom. Do you want to explain about that a little bit, Supervisor Gabbert?
This ordinance has not been changed since, I believe, 2016, and this will raise land lease fees, hangar fees. We've been doing this all along with the CPI, but this changes the entire ordinance to bring it up to date with today's standard rates so that we get more revenue for hangars and land leases out at the airport.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Carried. Resolution number 10309-2022, request authorization to accept grant funds, the amount of $10,000 from the Wolf River Watershed Alliance to enroll 100 acres of cropland into soil health conservation system with farmers and approve attached budget transfer. Vice Chairman Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for approval of Resolution 10309-2022.
And that's seconded by Supervisor Gordon. Did you want to say anything on it, or? Questions? Not seeing any questions. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Carried. Resolution number 10409-2022, create Rule 18.8 of the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors to allow any member of any committee, commission, board to vote remotely except for any meeting involving the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors, organizational meeting, business, budget, special orders meeting. Supervisor Norton.
To approve Resolution 04-092022.
And that is seconded by Supervisor Gordon. Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would be in favor of this, except I would say it can't be over telephone or a blank screen on Zoom, that we would need to be able to see the actual person doing the voting, and they'd need to be on there so that we can see the person who's voting and not just a blank entity. Thank you.
Supervisor Hintz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually would be against this because this was a planning and zoning meeting that you weren't at. We actually had Zoom fail us during the meeting, and none of us actually knew it. We just saw the names up there with all the names were on the screen, and nothing came up saying that there was an issue, but our meeting, about 4.5 minutes into the meeting, just cut off to everybody who was watching on Zoom. And if that happens when we have people who are trying to attend and vote, also we could lose a quorum. And then no business can be taken care of. And we didn't know about it in the meeting. Sorry. And we didn't know about it and the meeting was still going on. So in that case, I don't know, I just think it would cause technical issues and possibly legal issues.
Vice Chairman Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me start, as you know, I co-sponsored this resolution. And I do apologize to the Judicial Committee. I was not able to make the meeting to address my concerns at your committee meeting. Obviously, your vote was 0-5. So let me explain our position now, and I'm going to refer to the Land Conservation Committee. It's a 7-member committee, 5 county board supervisors and 1 citizen member and 1 Farm Service Agency Chairman Committee member. Of the 7 members, 2 frequently use Zoom to attend the meetings. And I'm saying quite frequently. Then we have, now, they are not currently able to vote. So that leaves me with 5 individuals on the committee who have the authority to vote. Of those 5, the FSA committee member is currently being challenged by the federal government as to whether he should be allowed to vote, even though our state law does that allow for that person to vote. And in fact, it specifically states in our rules and under state law, he is the appointee to the committee. So down the road, if this cannot be worked out between the Wisconsin Counties Association and the federal government, I could lose that person's vote also. So that's 3. At our last meeting, held the 1st of this month, I did not have a quorum until Supervisor Zelmer came to our meeting, giving me 4. So to us, and I don't know how this would portray to other committee members, it is very important that we have the option to allow those people attending on Zoom to be able to vote, so I can continue and be assured of having a quorum in the future. If this is denied, then it could put our committee in jeopardy occasionally of not having a quorum. And I appreciate Mr. Hinson's comments, because actually we don't have an issue with the person visually showing, because we have one of these, what do you call these little white things? So we haven't had a problem with that at all. But it is to the point that under our circumstances, within our committee, we do need the option to ensure that we have a quorum of members present to carry on the business of the Land Conservation Committee. Hopefully I can convince those that voted against it in Judicial Committee and the majority of the board to support this. Thank you.
Supervisor Flom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will be opposing this resolution today primarily because of the work that JPS had done in examining this resolution and then voting it down. In regards to the concerns about quorums and the problems that we're having with Zoom, not every committee is, has the opportunity to use the owls, and we've had the issues of Zoom on multiple committees before. Given the issues with possible quorum interruptions and the fact that JPS had already taken a look at this, I won't be voting yes on this today. Thank you.
Supervisor Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm all for this, but I have a couple questions and concerns. At our health board meeting last month, as my health board member, we had a couple citizen members who were joining us via Zoom. And I asked, Doug Aaron, the director, said, can they participate fully? Because if I was on the assumption that you had to be in person. He told me and we had enough people for quorum, we had enough people to conduct business, but he said that's okay because someone told him, I'm not saying who, that was allowed, that was a citizens commission, a citizen slash supervisor board commission, and that was allowed, okay? Then I go to my ADRC committee, which I was not feeling that well, so I stayed home and I Zoomed in, and I said the same thing, and Beth Roberts, the director, said the opposite. Said, no, you have to be, to fully participate, you have to be at the meeting. So win or lose or draw, I think we need to get some clarification, because I was at 2 different meetings where I was told yes, because there was a citizen slash county board supervisor committee, you could be virtually participating fully, and then the other one, you couldn't. So that's one of my questions I want to get resolved here. Other than I do agree, I think it is, there are always going to be technical concerns, but I think the ability to come participate in a meeting when you can, because either health or, we discussed this in June, July, and September. Well, maybe come September, maybe in December and July, in the winter months, you might think a little bit different, because maybe people would not want to always venture out. But like I say, I'm all for it, but I would like to have that bigger question is, how come I got 2 different answers about whether or not citizens could participate fully? Thank you.
I might be able to answer that question for you. The way the motion was written and brought out is, in order to vote, you must be in your chair. You can still come on Zoom, you can still converse and everything else, but in order to vote, you must be in your chair. That's all. That's what it was. You asked that question, that's what it was. So I'm not going to go any farther than that right now.
Well, I'm just going to say, as the meeting is in now, committee meetings, wherever, we don't have assigned seats or desks.
Nobody said assigned. They said in seats. Mike, I was on the health board. You all sat down at every meeting, so don't give me that. Supervisor Stafford.
It's not that
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't want to reiterate too much of what's been said, but I do want to point out that this did go through JPS and did not pass 0 to 5 for all the reasons you heard this evening. And just one additional thing, while I can really sympathize with the land conservation issues, I think what we have to do is balance the overall impact to all of the committees, commissions, and boards, and what would be the best action for the county as a whole. And I wish we would have had that specific conversation, because I probably would have asked, I would absolutely entertain an idea where if there's a significant issue with one committee, commission, or board, where it's detrimental to have that conversation about that board versus forcing all committees, commissions, and boards to be in some level of disarray. So for me, it's not an efficient way of managing businesses, or the business of the commissions, committees, and boards. And I will continue not to support this. However, if there is an issue with one specific committee, commission, or board, I would be open to having a discussion about what that means in the future. Thank you.
Supervisor Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I kind of echo a little bit about what Supervisor Hintz says about problems with Zoom. I echo too what Supervisor Stafford just said, and I really weigh hard what Vice Chairman Fari said. I really think the biggest part for me on this is for voting participation. I have no problem, and I fully acknowledge that I may be voting to my own detriment. I think I need to be in my chair, or everybody needs to be in their chair to vote.
Supervisor Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wish to perhaps come up with a new idea. What would happen if we made a proxy vote type form, and that includes the excuse, that includes the signature of the supervisor, and that can be voted by the chairman of the committee in the event that that individual is going to be missing or lost from the committee because of a medical or whatever, vacation arrangement or whatever. But you then have given that individual the ability to travel to Florida in his RV and not have to call in the vote or have somebody else call him up for a vote. It becomes, a moot issue, so to speak, because you now have given the authority to the chairman to vote his vote or her vote by proxy. And let's not forget that the Zoom issues only came about because we had a pandemic, only came about not because you can't get to the meeting, but because you had to stay out of the meeting so you wouldn't get sick. So let's kind of slow down on this a little bit with the Zoom issue and with people wandering off and not being able to vote. We can vote, and we can do it by proxy.
Supervisor Cox, my only question to you on that, so that means the chair of that committee gets to vote twice?
No. He has a sealed proxy vote. He makes his decision on the vote first and opens up the envelope and says, this is the vote for so-and-so.
Okay. Okay. Supervisor Gordon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And now,
Committee members on the Land Conservation Committee who does attend via Zoom because I work during the day. Our meetings are at 9 o'clock in the morning. In order for me to attend the meetings, that means I have to take an additional hour out of my day to attend the meeting, other than just the actual meeting, because of travel time. For me, financially, it makes more sense to be able to attend via Zoom. I'm fully present, I'm there for the whole thing. It's 2022, Zoom is not going away, it's there. I work remotely. We do 100% of our business with my division of my company is remote. We are very successful, we're a multi-million-dollar company. There's nothing wrong with voting remotely. And I don't understand why everyone is so against it. I mean, for me personally, financially, I'm a single woman. I need to make that money. So if you want to force me to then decrease my salary, my desire for staying on the board is going to decrease as well. I mean, if you're not going to make some allowances for some people, I don't know. But that is one of the reasons that we want to be able to vote via Zoom. Thank you.
no, it'll come back around you. Supervisor Buck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not going to get into it. I think Supervisor Gordon kind of touched on what I was going to touch on. We did run for these positions, but we just got through I think we were on Zoom for maybe 18 months. We got our county business done. Some of us have full-time jobs, kids, that kind of stuff. Some of us may have COVID or another ailment, and I think we've proven that we can get the county business done. I don't think it's an excuse to, be on Zoom. But I also think that, like Supervisor Gordon said, these kind of options aren't going away. They're going to continue to be here. They're going to provide opportunity for more people to serve, more people to, with disabilities, whatnot, to do their business. So I'm in support of this and hope the majority of you will be too. Thank you.
Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would I'd like to amend this resolution on line 26, after the word "or in person," put in, "if their live image can be seen and not just their name or photo image through a remote means." And I understand, that's the end of my amendment. And I understand that sometimes electronic means fail. I've had fails going on this past week in my own home with having to reboot about 15 or 20 times in less than a week's time. I know that there are times when we have issues, but I think, as I recall, when we could only phone in before there was a Zoom or a camera possibility, there was no voting if you were simply phoning in. We didn't know really who was on the other end. But if we can actually see a person's face, a live face, not just their name, not just a photograph, I would be willing to vote in favor of that. Thank you.
Was that a motion?
It was.
Can I ask for clarification?
Yes. Do you want to state that one more time, please, Supervisor Powers?
Sure. Sure, and so far it's sitting here without a second, so he can't ask anything until we get a second. On line 26, after the words "or in person," I would add, "if their live image can be seen and not just a name or photo image through the remote means."
And it dies of a second, so that died. Supervisor Peschel.
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Chairman, for the opportunity to speak this evening. I don't want to go on a long diatribe about this. We've all had our experiences, being part of government during the pandemic and using different forms of virtual meeting, hybrid, all of that. I've had the unique opportunity to serve on 3 bodies of government.
Can you get up closer to your mic, please?
Sorry, thank you, that have utilized and benefited from the hybrid virtual format. So the City Council, I served on at the time when we went virtual. School board was hybrid and virtual, and now I've had this ability to do this here with a little bit of that virtualness from someone else, from other people needing that flexibility. I think part of government's role is to be flexible in how we govern. And in general, I support this effort to creating that flexibility there. But I'm also reading the room here a little bit and noticing that it might not pass tonight. So I kind of want to suggest a compromise. Because what I hear is that our board is ready to be present in our seats for meetings, but we're saying that we might have a challenge with our committees to be able to do that. And I value what every single board person does in this room on committee, as well as those citizens and those professionals that take time to bring their expertise. So I value that. And so what I'd like to do is I'd like to send this back to JPS and to implore JPS to find a compromise that would be along the lines of, we move forward with the board operating in an in-person format, but we find flexibility for our committees to be able to maybe determine that themselves, depending on a case-by-case basis or a year, or I'm not going to sit here and make those determinants in my proposal. My proposal is to send it back to JPS so that they can look for a compromise and to be able to allow us to move forward with what we do and allow those that are engaged on many different other levels to be engaged more and consistently on the committee level. So I would look for a second.
Seconded by Supervisor Norton. Discussion on just sending it back to JPS now. That's what the discussion is, just that. So hold on, let me get all you other ones off here. Okay, I'm just going back to JPS. Supervisor Hanson.
I fully acknowledge what Supervisor Peschel is saying. Rather not kick this can down the road again and vote on it tonight.
Supervisor Hintz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If this does end up going back to JPS or comes back to us again in any other form, I would suggest that if it does go to committee only, we would do something similar to what we did with the meeting times, where it would be a unanimous vote by the committee, because that way the committee would be acknowledging that they have an issue that they need to handle.
Yeah, what? I missed that last time.
Yep. It would be unanimous, so that way they would.
Talk into your mic, please, so everyone can hear you. I couldn't hear you.
Oh, it was, I said that having it be a unanimous vote, then the committee would be acknowledging that there was an issue, and it wouldn't be just someone with their own agenda. That way no one could ever accuse the committee of doing it that way. That's my suggestion, is that it will go to JPS, and if they decide to bring that back and say that committees can decide on it, that they should have to decide by a unanimous vote. So that way there's clarity in that situation. Nobody can say, oh, it was pushed through because we had 3-2.
Yeah, I got you.
Supervisor Cox.
I see no reason why we shouldn't either have a proxy vote type arrangement, as I discussed earlier, or have an arrangement.
Right now we're just talking about sending it back to JPS.
I'm getting into that, just
okay.
Please. Or have an arrangement where, yes, you would have each committee express a desire to go to a Zoom format and vote Zoom. But it would have to mean that they would prescribe their persons in seat and be able to see them to make it a valid vote. We can't, we can't emphasize that more. It can't be something that, you can short circuit and get a workaround.
Okay. Thank you. Supervisor Youngquist.
I believe the way it is written is exactly what Supervisor Peschel wants. The board has to be in person, but the committee can vote by Zoom. That's the way it's written, so I don't think it needs to go back.
Supervisor Ellenberger.
I have a quick clarification. I thought that Supervisor Powers had something seconded.
No, it
Pardon
wasn't
me?
seconded.
Oh, I thought it was seconded on here. It said okay. So right now we just are
Talking
discussing
about
if we're
sending
going to put it
JPS.
to, okay. Thank you. That's all I wanted. I just wanted to make sure because I wasn't clear. I didn't see.
Supervisor Flom.
Actually, I don't need to speak on this. Thanks. My questions were clarified.
Okay, seeing no one else. I'm going to try it just by voice vote. The motion was made and seconded to go ahead and send this back to JPS. I'm going to try it. If it don't go, then we'll have to do on the machine. All those in favor of sending it back to JPS, say yes. Aye. Those opposed? No. We'll go by machine. I think I know which way it's going to go, but I think the nays have it. Thirteen ayes, 19 nays, so it does not go back to JPS. Okay, as soon as I can see here, I can see if anybody else wants to talk. Anyone else wishing to talk on this at this time? Supervisor Hanson?
Yeah, this would be voting on the resolution now, right?
Correct. There's no
It
one-
sounds like it's going to be close, so if we could record this one as well.
Okay. Supervisor Haran?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm kind of agreeing with Supervisor Cox here. We could have a proxy vote or designate an alternate, so have an additional person who can be in the room if you do not have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Peschel?
Sure. Thank you, Chairman, for the opportunity to speak again. I would like to make a motion to amend the resolution to read that, and I don't necessarily know where it's going to go in the resolution yet, but to read that we provide committees the ability to choose what format they wish to operate in. By unanimous vote, I'm in support of that.
Seconded by Norton. You said on unanimous order.
Point of order, I need to understand exactly what that amendment is.
Okay. So may I respond?
Yes,
Chair?
you may.
Thank you. So the concept would be similar to how we first started off this session, where the committee would have the opportunity to make a decision to determine their format. In my mind, they would have the ability to do that as situations arise. They would have that flexibility to do that. They would have to do it within, obviously within, open meeting law rules and notification and such, but without having the full constructs of it thought out, the idea is that that committee gets to make a decision on that format. So, with the concept of unanimous vote, they would have to have the full committee to make that decision, to move into their format, their preferred format.
Now, just on what he had just said, Supervisor Flom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have two quick things. First is a point of order. Can a committee suspend the rules in case they won't have an in-person quorum? Is that possible?
I wouldn't think so, but
I'm not aware of that.
Okay.
Supervisor Flom had that question.
No, that's okay. I was just wondering if that was possible. The second thing is, on the note of proxy voting, I think that's frankly ridiculous. You go get your signatures to show up either, in person, or for some people, if they, as things stand currently on the committees, virtually during the pandemic. But if you show up to go get your signatures, I don't think you should be in Florida with the ability to vote. Frankly, I think that's ridiculous.
Now, just on committee choice, that's all we're talking about, is committee choice. Supervisor Cox.
Just in answering Mr. Flom, there was an incident, in fact, that somebody decided to vote far from the committee. That is an ethics problem, as you can't measure whether the vote was actually taken by that individual or where the vote was taken from.
Excuse me, Supervisor Cox, this is just on sending it back.
Okay.
That's all we're talking about.
As far as sending it back, if it
I
were
shouldn't say
rewritten.
sending it back, I'm sorry, I'm trying to keep your attention,
Yeah,
I'm
we're-
losing mine, so. This is on the amendment now. On the committee's decision, has to be by the committee's decision. Unanimous decision.
And I believe that's a good place to start, okay?
Okay.
But I think that it needs to go back to JPS to have it refiled.
That got voted down, so. Supervisor Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do apologize. Actually, what I was asking for was the specific language of the amendment that we're voting on. Because I understand the concept. I just can't vote on a concept. I have to vote on actual language. Then two other quick thoughts since I have the floor. First is, oh boy, I can't find it right now, but surely they could request the chair of the board to come instead, since he has the ability to go to a committee and vote on behalf of a member.
Which I have.
Which you have, absolutely. That's well, my point is, that's an option. And the other is, we did pass a rule this past term that unless it was passed by the committee, commission, or board unanimously, the meeting should be after 3. So I just want to make sure that we're all abiding by the rules that this board, this body approved. Thank you.
Supervisor Peschel.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, I want to respect your rules that
Okay.
you've laid out. I've already spoken.
Correct.
But I have had another question presented to me. So at your discretion, I'm at your discretion on whether I can continue.
Maybe I'll come back to you.
Okay.
Supervisor Ellenberger.
I've already spoke once too, but I just have a quick question, kind of piggybacking on Brian's comment. When you say with this amendment, are you saying that you unanimously do it and then that's for the rest of the time of the committee, or is that per meeting? Or I'm kind of hung up on the technicalities a little bit on before I vote for this. So do you see where I'm getting at? I mean, is it, for example, when we started our committees, we voted on the time because we had to per policy if it was going to be prior to 3 p.m., correct? So we voted, and now we do all of our meetings, for example, I'm on the aviation committee, we have ours at 8 so that we can accommodate people to come in for work. So would this be a general blanket? So if the committee says, for example, on Supervisor Farley's committee, do you say, is this for the entirety of that year? Is it that 2-year term? Is it just per meeting? That's my only question.
Supervisor Peschel, I'll let you answer that.
All right, thank you. My response would be that would be at the flexibility of the needs of the committee to make that decision. So, if they feel that at the end of their meeting, that at the next meeting, they know by looking at their schedules that there may be a challenge with it. They have the ability to say that it's going to be hybrid, all in person, or, virtual. Yeah, it has to be unanimous.
Vice Chairman Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me answer a few questions. Supervisor Stafford raised the issue about the time of the meeting. The committee did take that vote. It was unanimous. We followed the rules to keep our meetings at 9 o'clock. Now, in regard to asking the chair to attend the meeting in an absence, I need to know that person is going to be absent. If we have a situation where I'm not informed they're going to be absent, they just don't show up, then I certainly, how can I call the chairman unless I want to delay the meeting? So that's really quite cumbersome. And there are situations where I'm not always told that people are not going to be there. I hope that addresses your questions.
Corporate Counsel had something she'd like to add.
Actually, just to sort of follow up on what Supervisor Peschel was saying, in terms of wordsmithing.
Want to pull your mic down a little bit, please, Mary Ann?
Vertically challenged, yeah.
Better.
And a nod to Sue Ortmer for actually her thoughts on this too. But if you go to line 25, if you start after Rule 18 and state, with unanimous consent of a, and take out any member of any, so then you would say, with unanimous consent of a committee, commissioner, board, comma, and then you add a member may fully participate in a meeting and vote either remotely or in person, but for any meeting involving the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors, and it stays the same. But I don't know if that was trying to convey what you were trying to state. Just a thought. Yeah. So line 25, after Rule 18.8, with unanimous consent of a committee, commissioner, board, comma, a member may fully participate in a meeting and vote either remotely or in person, but for any meeting involving the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors, and the language continues.
Does that then imply each meeting or just a one-time vote?
With unanimous consent of a committee may participate in a meeting. A meeting.
I've got two other ones up here ahead of everyone, so are you done right now, or?
Yeah.
Okay. Supervisor Gabbard.
This is most confusing, but I need clarification. So now we're making it every committee meeting we have, you as a committee before that committee meeting, as a whole committee, decide whether you can have someone remote or not, but the chairman of the committee shall be at the meeting, and you could have 4 people not at the meeting. If you so all unanimously vote that way. This has gotten more confusing than it needs to be.
But the language that I just proposed would suggest one meeting, each meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This would have been great conversation at the committee level. I think that's why our meetings go so long, is we don't spend time at the committee talking about these things. We spend the time with the board. So I call the question.
Question's been called, and I did hear a second. Who seconded that? Supervisor Flom. The question has been called. We're voting on the amendment. We're voting on the amendment. This is on the amendment. On the amendment. Yes, sir. Yes, I heard it. Supervisor Hanson asked for it quite a while ago. Yes, it will be recorded. Can one of you read the motion that we're going to vote on? Right. We're just calling the question on the amendment. All they're doing is calling the question on the amendment. If you're for it. Just hold on a second. What's the matter now?
Amendment to, I can't get back. I don't think.
It never was finalized. It didn't go through. Yeah. It didn't
Because we were voted, but not a calling the question.
They're calling the question on the
on the
underlying
amendment.
resolution, not on the amendment.
Yep.
calling the question to vote on the amendment.
On the amendment?
On the amendment.
On the amendment.
Call the question on the amendment, which hasn't been finalized. There's no language on the amendment finalized.
All right, so we should finalize the language? Let's see.
We're going to finalize the
So
language on the amendment first here.
Supervisor Peschel, do you want to state the language?
I think it will be beneficial to everyone who's about to call the question on it to know what they're calling it.
Okay, so do you want to say the language, or do you want me to?
I prefer you to do it, because I didn't write it down to the extent that.
Okay, but it conveyed what you wanted, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So the suggested amendment is on line 25, with unanimous consent of a committee, commission, or board, comma, a member may fully participate in a meeting and vote either remotely or in person, but for any meeting involving the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors, e.g. organizational, business, budget, special orders. The chair of the meeting must be physically present if the meeting is held in a hybrid form. I'm looking for, where's, but for, yes. So, in other words, the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors business meetings, budget meetings, special orders meetings, organizational meetings would not be subject to this. This would be for any other meetings involving committees, commissions, or boards.
Okay, so can we,
So,
do I have to clear it? If they voted already?
so
So they're
are they voting on
voting
what
to
now?
call the question on the amendment that Mary Ann just read.
okay, so we're calling the question on the amendment that Mary Ann just read. We're calling the question on the amendment that Mary Ann just read. So if you're in favor of it, say A. If you're against it, say nay.
Not against it, just stopping conversation to vote on. That's what we're voting on.
Right. You're ending the debate. Right. Right.
And that
And it passed by 2/3. Okay, so we can go ahead and vote on it now.
Yep. And that the amendment is the majority? Okay. Yep.
So now we're voting on the amendment.
On the amendment.
So now we are voting on the amendment. So if you're in favor of the amendment, signify by saying A. If you're against it, say nay. Tied vote. Tie vote.
So it failed.
Tie vote.
So But, so that one failed, the amendment failed.
That one failed. So now we're back to the resolution. So we're back to the original resolution now.
Yeah.
So we're back to resolution number 10509-2022. Create rule
104.
10409-2022. Create rule 18.8 of the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors to allow any member of any committee, commission, or board to vote remotely except for any meeting involving the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors organizational meeting, budget, and special orders. Supervisor Eisen.
Yeah, I'd like to help the board get out of this morass by postponing it indefinitely.
Second.
Who seconded it? Who seconded it? Seconded by Supervisor Weiss. So Mary Ann, you want to tell them now what that means so that question don't come up again before they vote?
So,
I
a
know.
motion to postpone. My opinion is that a motion to postpone indefinitely kills this for the session. And my interpretation of the session, though I will say there could be clarification in the future regarding definitions, is it would be for the 2 years or whatever now, a year and a half you have left in your term. Right, right. So when you hear postpone indefinitely, associate it with death, okay?
Was it a majority on this
Definitely
one, or-
second.
Just a second.
Yes, it's a majority.
Majority. Can you still have
And
discussion?
it is debatable,
Yes.
but it cannot be
I
amended.
can't see up.
And it requires a second. Did we get a second?
Yes.
There was a
Supervisor Weiss seconded. Okay. Supervisor Flom.
Mr. Chairman, I call the question.
Testing me. Okay.
Do I have a second on that? Second. Motion was made and seconded to call the question. I can just do a roll call again. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Nay. Roll call. Roll call. That's what they wanted before. I hope you keep track of all this.
This is. That passed.
And that passed.
So, next. So now we're back to
Postponing it?
postponing it. Okay.
Now we're back on postponing it. If you're in favor of postponing it, signify by saying aye. If you're not, signify by saying nay, or not saying, just punching in. That failed. 12 to 20. Okay, so we're still on it. We're back on the original resolution now. Back on the original one?
Yeah?
Okay. Resolution number 1040920. What? That's what he just did. Resolution number 104. That's what I'm reading again, Mike. Just hold on. I got to read it again and get it back into the records here. Just hold on. I got to read it again and get it back into the records. 10409-2022. Create Rule 18.8 of the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors to allow all members of the Winnebago of any committee, commission, or board to vote remotely except for any meetings involving the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors organizational, business, budget, and special orders. Supervisor Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move to amend on line 25. After the word any, insert the word citizen.
He said instead of any, he said citizen. Correct, Supervisor Norton?
Right.
And so it's just any citizen of
Instead of
any.
any, citizen. You just want to eliminate any and put citizen, correct?
Right, any citizen member. That means a county board supervisor cannot fully participate if they're remotely, but any citizen could.
Got that. Okay. Okay.
Was there a second?
Did I have a second to that? I'm not hearing a second. That fails. Supervisor Gabbard.
Not right now.
Not right now. Okay. Not seeing any other ones? Oops. Supervisor Haran.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have on line 26, instead of the word but, except for any meeting involving. That, but just seems so confusing to me. But for?
That's what it reads in the title. Can I second?
You can second it. It says that in the title. You are correct. Who seconded that?
Yep, gotcha.
Supervisor Instura.
It's except for in the title.
Can,
In
they're
the-
asking
in
if
the
it can be a
resolution
friendly
itself,
amendment.
it's
Can that be just a friendly amendment?
Oh, okay.
Yes, they said it
Okay.
can be a friendly
Yeah.
amendment. Corporate counsel did. Not seeing anything else.
Vote by machine, right?
Hmm?
You're gonna vote by machine.
By machine will vote.
Yeah.
This will be the original.
It should.
1616. Same as last time. Failed. Okay, that one failed, so we'll move on to resolution number 10509-2022. Amend Rule 10.2 of the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors to limit time supervisors may speak on a subject. Supervisor Stafford.
I move for the consideration of Resolution 105-09-2022.
Seconded by Hintz. All right. Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My only concern is that 2 minutes is really too short to get things in. The man who spoke on the boat landing, the citizen member spoke, even though he's only supposed to have 2 minutes, he had 3 minutes, 16.12 seconds, and still wasn't finished. we've had supervisors who've asked to speak and have spoken for 10 minutes in a meeting. That is excessive. I think 2 minutes is too short. I would go with at least 3, possibly 4. But I think 2 is, it's not enough time.
Is that amendment?
That's my amendment. No member can speak more than 4 minutes.
Motion made and seconded. Yep.
So it already allows that. I think the resolution would, or sorry, the amendment to the resolution would be too much.
Right. Yeah, it already says
No,
that.
because what I'm saying is he can speak 4 minutes at a time, so that, in other words, if you get to speak a second time, that's 4 more minutes, so we're looking at 8. So it's not the same as what's in here.
So you're saying just 4 minutes at all? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying no member may speak more than 4 minutes and twice on the same question for a total of 8 minutes per question.
Okay. Sure, just hold on here. Supervisor Conley, where are you here? Well. Huh. Go ahead.
Thank you. Am I misunderstanding? Please correct me. I'm understanding that the gallery or public comment is still 2 minutes. Line 23 is board members, 2 minutes.
Right.
Am I misunderstanding Supervisor Powers?
That's her amendment, right. She'd like to go up to 4 minutes.
Right, but she qualified that by talking about someone
Correct.
that spoke publicly.
Correct. You are correct. She was talking about they only have 2 minutes, but you are correct.
Okay, thank you.
Back just on the amendment. Supervisor Dowling.
I'm just waiting for the regular resolution. Thank you.
Supervisor Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a note, the committee vote was 3-2 at JPS. And I was one of those who voted for this at JPS. But one thing happened, a meeting. And I actually tried this at the last meeting to do 2 minutes. And it is, for me, it was impossible to get my points across while responding to other questions. So I actually have changed my vote just as I have actually went through it. And so I absolutely support the 4 minutes per time for a total of 8. And also recognize that in lack of any specific rule in the Winnebago County Board rules, we follow Robert's Rules of Order, and in Robert's Rules of Order version 12, which is 2020, it does state 2 times per question, 10 minutes each. So there is a ceiling, just so we all know. Now, maybe 10 minutes is too long. That's another question, but there is something in place already. But I am absolutely supportive of the 4 minutes for a total of 8. Thank you.
Supervisor Cox, just on the 4 minutes amendment.
I think it should be left to a discretion of the chairman of that committee as to whether he wants it greater than or less than 2 minutes. And
This is the county board. We're talking about doing the county board.
yes, and on the county board, it is the discretion of the chairman of the board to make that either 2 minutes or 3 minutes or 4 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever you want.
So, well, I'd like to hear the board members because I'm only one person, so
Yeah.
I think it's right to hear from the board.
Well, I think 4 minutes and setting that as the only, you have a discretion per meeting, and you can make it either 2 minutes or 10 minutes in each meeting, depending on how you want to set up your agenda. And that is in the little black book we all got from WICA.
Right.
Okay?
And your committees and commissions and boards can go ahead and do that. We're just talking about the county board meetings tonight.
Yeah, well, the county board meeting is run like that.
Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Inasmuch as we have some vitally important business pending with this board called the budget session, I move to postpone this question till after the budget session and bring it back November 15th. So let's not tie our hands, particularly when we have 16 new supervisors and a new budget. This is not the time to do it.
I thought I heard somebody second it. Seconded by Supervisor Peschel. Anyone wishing to discuss bringing it back after the November 15th? I can't see, I got this in front of me here, so. Can you delete that? Oh, that's it. Okay, so now just bringing it back after November 15th. Supervisor Peschel, just on that.
I'm good. Thank you.
Supervisor Buck.
Well, I guess I
lost everybody.
Sorry.
else in to take the time if we do it on after November? Or do you feel comfortable with the folks, you two taking time? Is this going to be something that's actually feasible to do? Mm-hmm.
It'll take a little practice, but I think we can do it.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Norton.
I think if we're going to do any type of limitation, I don't know why we have to wait after the budget. Let's do it now. I mean, if this is such an important issue to some people, then let's not wait for it. Let's get it done. I'm agreed to the 4-minute amendment. I thought the compromise would be 5-minute period, but I see if we're going to push it back to after the budget, how come we don't push it back further and further? And why is it really even needed? So if you think it's needed, and I don't think we should postpone it, that's decided tonight.
Supervisor Dowling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our meetings have a historic record of running over, and I don't think we need to wait until after the budgetary meeting to make a decision on this. Thank you.
Supervisor Powers.
I was going to say that I supported the waiting, Supervisor Eisen's desire to move this until after the budgets, because budgets do take longer, and there may be a lot more discussion. That's the only reason I think he's moving it there. Thank you.
Supervisor Peschel.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to speak this evening. I think it's really important when we discern over this is acknowledging the need to have a very succinct meeting and to make strong, solid decisions in a certain amount of time, but also acknowledging that there are times that we need to have flexibility, in regards to that. And so, and that's why I'm supporting this. It's not that I don't want us to have a more succinct business meeting. I really do. I got a life outside of here, and so I'd like to be, home earlier, doing all that, and us, being efficient in that way. But I think right now, I think it's really important that we acknowledge the chair in regards to what his wishes are and what he's telling us in regards to how he wants his meetings to be run. So I thank you for doing that. But I also want to acknowledge that it is really important to have the time to be able to speak and debate about the very important things that are going to come past us this November. I am open to bringing it back and creating those boundaries, but still creating flexibility around budget time as well. Because just because there's 37 of us here, did I get that number right? 36, sorry. That doesn't mean that we're not going to need that extra time in the times when we're expected to really deliberate on budget. So, thank you.
Supervisor Hanson.
I apologize for my confusion. I understand what the chair is trying to do with this resolution. Could I please get further clarification from Supervisor Stafford's comments and possibly Mary Ann as to the Roberts Rules of Order? Does this resolution mean that we're violating Roberts Rules?
This resolution does not mean you are violating Robert's rules. When Supervisor Stafford referenced Robert's rules, the Roberts rules is that the default is you can have up to 10 minutes twice per question. And,
Supervisor Harrison.
Okay, again, this is an example here. We're spending a lot of time on something again. Mr. Chairman brought this up. He had sent out notices to everyone, asking them their opinions, and I don't know how many he got, but the meetings are going long. It's listed right there. So we're really not, we're doing exactly what we're trying not to do, is we're going back and forth and trying to put things off, and that's where all the time comes, because we just keep delaying decisions. Now, again, when I came on this as a supervisor, I thought I came to make decisions, not to play tennis back and forth. You know, I mean, it goes back and forth on technicalities, little stuff, and we're talking about business that we're supposed to be taking care of. But in the years past, I never have spent 4 or 5, 6 hours doing this, you know, and we're just arguing back and forth on technicalities. And then when you're all done arguing, it's let's put it off till later. Let's not worry about it. That's not the way to do it. I mean, this resolution is here. We have to start correcting these. And if we're going to not try to make an example or try to do something to shorten these meetings, they're not going to get any better. It doesn't going to change by putting it to November or December, because we'll be talking about this again, and we'll probably have another late one because we can't decide. I think the chairman brought this up. He still controls the meeting, but we need to control some of the time. Some people talk, some don't. Some talk, 5 or 6 different times. I lost track. But it gets confusing for us or me to figure out what's going on, because it's going back and back and forth. And then at the end, after I'm almost ready to make a decision, it's, let's put it off until next time. So I don't want to do it again. So my opinion is that we should decide on it. We should just not keep pushing it off. That's why. So I don't agree to do that. So thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there any way, Corporation Counsel, that I could amend this to say that exempt the budget session? I mean, could I say in the last line, except for the budget session, no member shall speak? I mean, that would help me a lot, because I hear my colleagues say we want lively debate during the budget session, but yet we want some restrictions during the regular business meeting. So why don't we say during the budget session, we'll take off this restriction, try that for a year, but then we can try this for a minute or 2 minutes, whatever, and try that. That's what my compromise would be, if I would be able to do that.
you are not able to do that. There is a motion to postpone to a certain date. Therefore, you cannot now amend. They have to vote on the motion to postpone to a certain date.
So if we defeat that, I can bring it up again. Okay.
I call the question.
Question has been called.
I have the floor, don't I, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, I had already had his light paused, so you'd be next. So I had his light already on. Vice Chairman Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I need to remind the board that we have the prerogative to suspend the rules by voting, and we certainly could do that during the budget session. It's simply an option we would exercise. Thank you. And I'll call the question myself.
Okay, who seconded it? Supervisor Cox.
I did that one just by voice vote.
Well, if they don't mind, we can do it by voice vote. This is to suspend until after November 15th. Call the question, I'm sorry. Call the question. This is just calling the question now. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Carried. Now we're on November 15th, right? Huh?
Motion to postpone to November.
I gotta wait till Julie catches up here.
Yes, now we're on postponing.
Okay, now we're going on to postpone till after November 15th. If you're in favor of it, pass or push A. If you're not, push nay. That failed 24-8. So we're back on,
Supervisor Powers amendment.
pardon?
You're back to Supervisor Powers amendment.
Powers Amendment, right. So we're back on Supervisor Powers Amendment now to go ahead into, for 4 minutes. We've had a second on that. Pardon?
4 minutes for a total date.
Right, twice, times 2. So as soon as Supervisor Flom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think actually Supervisor Powers' suggestion here is prudent. I think we need to do something about this, but we can always suspend the rules during items like budget. So I will be supporting the amendment.
Supervisor Norton.
So can I add to that? And what I had a suggestion, except during budget sessions, and just add what she had? Why can't, let me ask you that question.
You can, but you wouldn't really have to, because the board can suspend the rules.
Well, I want to make sure that,
Okay.
you know, this is, by putting it in the rule, that's what I want to do. Can I do it? That's my first question.
Can you suspend the rules? The answer is
No. My question is, can I add to her amendment and say, except during budget session?
I don't understand what you want to do. What are you trying to say?
I'm saying that, except during the budget session.
Where? What line?
Line 23, except during the
But-
budget session, no member shall speak more than 4 minutes, and what she had.
Let's vote on one amendment at a time. Yeah, you have a motion
Supervisor Powers made an amendment. It was seconded. Now your board should vote on that
Okay,
amendment.
I'm just asking, let's go ahead. vote
That's
for
why
it.
he was asking if he could take that or not. Supervisor Swan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with Supervisor Cox. I think that the chairman of the county board should have discretion as to when you want to set the minutes at 2 or 10. And that allows flexibility in, you know, board meetings that are gonna, we think, need more discussion and those that don't. So if you set it low, set the bar low here, and then you have full discretion on deciding if you want to allow more discussion or not. And I think everybody, to me, that makes sense.
Supervisor Peschel.
Sure. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak today, Mr. Chairman. And I guess my question refers to Mr. Swan's points there. If we were to pass this the way that it is today, as chairman of the board, does it, in your mind, or if we want to seek a legal opinion, does it hold you to have to instill that time frame, or does it still provide you the ability to be flexible with those rules?
I could be flexible, but then somebody's going to say, not poking fingers at you, but somebody's
Sure.
going to say, Mr. Chairman, can I just ask this one last question? And I'm going to say, sure, and then it's going to be another few minutes or whatever.
Sure.
And then it's going to be, this one's over here is going to say that. So we don't have a lot of them that really go over that 2 minutes. I can honestly say that, and that's why that 2 minutes actually come up with. But we do have a few, and if we don't contain it somehow, this is why we're in this long. I
Sure.
mean, I never thought we'd be this long tonight.
So, All right, thank you.
Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And with all apologies to you and whoever runs the clock, again, I'm bringing up the citizen member who the clock didn't even get started until he'd been speaking for over 40 seconds. He went through his additional 2 minutes, and then you give him more time. We're pretty loose on these time clock things. So once he reached 0, you said, well, can you finish this up? So it was, 3 minutes and whatever I said, 16 seconds of speaking. I think it's a good idea to have something set and really follow them and set those time clocks and follow them as closely as possible. Otherwise, why do we have any rules at all if the chairman of the board can suspend or slip and slide through all of them?
I can tell you why I did that one. I could see there was hardly no one else back there. I thought it was very important. It went back to clear before, and I thought he had something to offer, and so I just thought, well, just give him just some little bit there, and, if there would have been a room full that night, I would have stopped him, just like I did that one night. Your 2 minutes was up, we're done, we shut him right off.
That's
So
fair,
what I
thank
did.
you.
And they are our constituents. Supervisor Cox.
Chairman, you're cutting yourself, your flexibility, you're cutting yourself off from being able to run as a chairman, control the time, and operate independently in each meeting. If you want to change it to 4 minutes, you can change it to 4 minutes. If you want to change it to 2 minutes or less, you can change it to 2 minutes or less. You give yourself that flexibility when you approve the agenda and you take a look at who's out there. If we're going to 60 people back here that are going to argue about mask mandates or whatever, you can say, okay, well, we're going to give you 30 seconds to, say your piece. You can't pass something like this or allow something like this to go out and be passed and give yourself less flexibility in the long run. Each chairman has the right in their own committees. You have in this body, you have the right in your agenda to set it up whatever you want. So let's not fool around with this stuff and get down to business and go and adjourn and have fun tonight.
We're still on the 4 minutes here. Supervisor Safford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of things really quick. First is both Supervisor and Cox and Swan, that would be a separate amendment. So that's a totally different thing. If this fails, that could be an amendment that is brought up. Because both in the Robert's Rules of Order as well as our rules, it does not stipulate that the chair has that ability. And we have to go back to the rules. So I think it is good for us to have this conversation because there is no rule that gives the chair that level of accountability in terms of setting up those parameters. And then just one other note, I actually went through the longest meeting that we've had over the last couple months, which was June 21st, 22. That was a nice one. I just want to reinforce that as Chair said, most people did not speak more than just a few minutes. That wasn't the major contributor to our length of meeting. We had 23 resolutions. We had the announcements of the scholarships. We spent about 1 hour and 15 minutes with the county executive. We had 2 breaks. We had 4 technical issues. You can't avoid that, but we had 4 technical issues. And we had this continuing issue of bringing up tangential conversations and tangential points of view when we discussed the amendments or the motions. And it truly does add. One of the things that I learned from the WCA over this past weekend was we are not really the norm in terms of boards. They're very succinct. Their meetings are quite short. And everyone I asked, I said, how is that? And they said, well, it's because all of the conversation happens at the committee level. And I think it's one of the things that we have to come to grips with and resolve as well. If we really want to shorten these meetings, we have to figure out how we can have more of these conversations offline in our committees so we don't hash these things out at the board level. So I'm just throwing that out there. That was a big learning for me as I spoke with the different counties throughout the state. So we could pass this or we won't. Doesn't matter. If we don't fix these other things, I don't know if it's going to materially change the length of time. So I really hope that we can think about that going forward as well. Thank you.
Supervisor Hahn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wrote down what I wanted to say, and I like the thought of a time limit. I think oftentimes as we come to the board, many of us may not have done a thorough looking at all of the information that we have, and maybe a time limit would make us say, oh, you know what, this one is really important to me, and my thoughts are created, written down, and when I come here, I speak them succinctly, clearly, and quickly. I'm Chatty Cathy. Thank you.
Thank you. Not seeing anyone else, we are on motion to amend. Pardon?
It's Supervisor's
Right.
Powers Amendment.
So we have Supervisor Powers' motion to, for the 4 minutes twice, in other words, being 8 minutes. So if you're in favor of that, vote A. If you're not in favor of it, vote nay. I could vote for him because I know what he wants to vote, but.
Is he not there?
Is he coming? In favor of it or against the 4 minute amendment? And that fails 17 to 15. That failed. Okay, so we're back on the original one now. Supervisor Nussbaum.
Call the question.
Who seconded it? Supervisor Flom? Motion made and seconded for calling of the question. So Supervisor Dowling.
Oh, are we not doing call the question?
We are.
We are.
Oh, not on that.
Okay. All right, we'll better do it by, okay.
Sorry, I'm getting there. Okay, do you want to do it by machine?
We better do it by machine. Well, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Nay. Carried.
Hold on.
Yep. Just hold on, I'll get your Supervisor Flom.
That's all I had.
Supervisor Gabbard, did you have yours on?
Change it to voice.
I did, but I
Supervisor
don't know where
Gabbard?
we are in this whole thing. Now are we back on the original?
We're back on the original. It's already been done and seconded, but thank you.
So we're back on,
We're back on the question now.
right, we're on the resolution now.
We're on the resolution.
Okay, now they're ready to vote?
Yes, no, there's nothing in there.
Okay, so this is on the original.
This is on the original. So if you're in favor of the original, signify by saying aye. If you're not, signify by saying nay. It passed 22 to 10. Resolution number 10609, 2022, supporting Operation Green Light for Veterans. Supervisor Norton.
Make a resolution to approve a resolution 106-092022. Very briefly, this is an initiative by NACO. It's being supported, as you can tell, by the Veterans Service Commission. I have also asked, if this gets passed, that part of this project is that I've talked to Andy Buck about a green light will be spotlighted on maybe not every county building, but a number of them. But that's the initiative, and it's supposed to be taking place the Veterans Week, first week in November. So that's what I can tell you about it. It's a NACO initiative.
Okay, the motion was made and seconded for supporting Operation Green Light. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Carried. Supervisor Albert. Motion is made and seconded to adjourn until our October meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, we are adjourned.